tight. Hey everyone, I'm Jen Fine. I am the co-founder and CEO of YouLi, and we make an incredible platform for organizing group trips. And we are here today to sort of just be inspired and hopefully get some really helpful tips and tricks from some experienced group travel creators. And I'm lucky to be here with two amazing people. We have Nick from GoNaked events. Hello, Nick. And we have Sophia from Melanated Travel with us as well.
Hey, everyone.
And today we're going to be just really hearing their stories, but then kind of digging into a little bit of, how did they get started? What are some of the things that make it easy to kind of relaunch in this age of the pandemic, but also try to get them to think way back to when they were starting and, what are the things that you need to do to build brands like they have? And I'm actually also excited to hear from Sofia because she's launched a second brand. So, when is it the right time to have another one? So I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Nick and Sophia are always incredible storytellers. So yeah, I thought I would get started by just kind of getting the background. So Nick, would you like to go first and share with us what kind of experiences do you create? How did you get started and where are you at now?
Sure. So hi, everybody. My name is Nick Vannello. I'm usually in Cleveland, Ohio, but today I'm in lovely Deep River, Connecticut. That was my partner who just walked by. I'm visiting for a few days. I started GoNaked magazine, a magazine for male nudists, about almost 8 years ago now. And the only reason I started it is because I wanted to learn about digital publishing. I had other businesses in the past, but I just wanted to learn some new technology. I never imagined that 8 years later, I'd be taking a group of readers and traveling with them to different parts of the world. Readership right now, I've got about 15,000 people on the mailing list. And if you're brand new, what I really suggest is stop thinking of your business as your brand. You are your brand. You are your brand because, and the reason I say that is I've been doing assorted businesses for years and years. I've tried online businesses, I've started kilt businesses, and people follow me because they're interested in the things that I bring to the table. So when I launched my kilt business, they were like, what's this all about? And so a whole cadre of folks followed me and became kilt customers. When I launched the magazine, those kilt customers who were curious enough came over and followed the magazine. So there's a lot of crossover there. Your mail list is key. Your mail list is key. Your mail list is key. Every day I dedicate at least an hour's worth of work to getting more folks in on that mail list, folks who want to know me, want to know about the brand, want to know about what I do and what GoNaked offers. The tagline for GoNaked magazine is we connect our readers to the people, places, and products we connect our readers to the people, places, and products that support our lifestyle. And a couple of years ago, so how we started with travel, a couple of years ago, I went down to Puerto Vallarta, fell in love with it. It was very gay friendly. And I was like, I needed to bring groups of people here. And I had traveled in the past by bringing groups of people other places, but small events. And I really wanted to do it correctly. So I looked into the retreat model, decided what I was going to be offering my folks. And through luck, I stumbled upon YouLi and was introduced to the fantastic YouLi team. And they have made it easy for me to do all of the stuff in the background that makes the trip easy for my folks. As far as what I do to create that buzz, there's a couple different things that go on. We just did a trip last November, yes, in Mexico during a pandemic because I'm an idiot. I had started planning this trip last January, February. And of course, then COVID hit, and we just, all we could do was watch to find out what's going on. And the guys who were interested in the trip from the get-go stayed with me the entire time. We didn't have anybody drop. We had one person drop out because they were afraid, and that spot quickly got refilled.
Wow.
The reason they got refilled is because I had that huge mail list of folks who were interested in what I was creating. So again, always go back to the mail list, always go back to the mail list. So we, as a group of travelers, we were on Zooms probably every 2 to 3 weeks, just doing what we're doing right now, talking about what's going to happen, what the safety plan was, what the current climate was in Mexico in regards to COVID. And when we went, the infection rates there were so much lower than they were in the United States.
Wow.
People actually felt safer getting on a plane and going to Mexico than being in the United States. So it was almost a vacation from COVID. Everybody was still very safe, and everybody, applied the rules that were necessary. But it was a welcome change, and it was neat to see how another country was addressing the problem.
Well, that is the power of travel, right? It's always that sort of seeing that things are different in another place and getting that perspective, right?
Yep. And because of the success of that trip, I've booked 3 more trips for this year, one in October, one November, one December, all back to Puerto Vallarta. And I did that only because when I booked them, I wasn't quite sure what was going to be opened in the world yet. So I knew that Mexico was going to be a place that I could probably go back to. So that's why trips this year are back to Vallarta.
Yeah.
Probably in 2022, we'll start going other places. So
that's pretty smart. So that's, just sort of recognizing the reality of travel as it is, and sticking to the locations you can get to, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and it also creates a buzz because now I've got the 14 guys who were on last year's trip who are talking about it, who are creating the buzz for the 3 trips this year. So when I do my Zooms, I'm pulling in guys who went on last year's trips so they can talk about the chef prepared meals and the pools and all that other stuff. When we went to Mexico, it was on a lockdown from 8 p.m. on. So all the bars were closed. Ubers stopped running at 9 p.m. So really, after our chef made our meals at 7 p.m., there was no place to go. So we just created our own fun and our own party at the villa. And the guys who went last year were still so impressed and had so much fun. We're bringing them on as guests, kind of like I'm a guest for you guys now.
Yeah.
And that really has created a lot of excitement for new travelers. So
that's excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nick. I think we might circle back and ask for more details on that, but I'm going to give Sophia a little bit of time to share her story. So Sophia joined up with us relatively recently. Also, I think in, was it 2021 that you joined?
Yeah, 2021, yeah.
And so Sophia, you have 2 brands. You have your original brand, and then you have your new one, Melanated Travel. So tell us, kind of your background, what's your core brand, and then what inspired you to launch Melanated Travel this year?
Sure. I'm going to piggyback on what Nick said. It's not, when you're taking groups of people traveling, it's not the same as selling burgers at McDonald's. Like, you really have to be invested and really, really enjoy people and locations and learning and experiencing cultures, etc. So I've always been that person, similar to probably everyone who's on this call and who's going to be watching this Facebook Live. Always been that person that people would be like, oh, Sophia, I'm going on my honeymoon. Where do you think I should go? Yeah. Oh, Sophia, I want to take this group of students travel. Where should I go? Are you going on any trips so I can come with you? So I've always been that person people just tagged along with. So people would just go with me to Guatemala, go with me to Cuba. And I realized when my children, I have twins, were going to boarding school, which are very expensive in the US, I need to find a business that I enjoy, that I do well, and that will not necessarily take up my entire time. So I started student travel, taking groups of students and faculty to different locations that I have been in. So very similar to Nick, not somewhere I've never gone before. So I'm a world traveler. So I've been to Guatemala like 40 times. I've been to Cuba like 30 times. You know, there's certain places that I've gone over and over. So those are the places that I would just take groups of people. And of course, when COVID hit, school travel, I knew was not going to bounce back like leisure travel. Like that wasn't going to happen. Schools are going to be much more cautious. So I was looking at 2022-23 academic year for any kind of school programs of the schools that I work with. And so during that time, again, similar to Nick, the folks that had buzzes, folks that I've traveled with in the past, folks that, right, a lot of people were very bored just sitting at home all day. And so they would call and say, when is your next trip? What are you going to be doing? And I said, well, you know, not anytime soon, etc. And I just thought about, I had an aha moment, like, why don't I start a leisure travel company that is not necessarily competing nor complementing the educational travel, because that's its own entity, but a leisure travel company for people of African descent, indigenous descent, to travel around the world, right? So as a woman, you know, there's certain places that women can go that we feel safe. As folks in the LGBTQ community, there's places that you know that you're not gonna go to. You're not going to go to travel to that locality. Same thing for Black people. There's places that you go that you just feel completely at home. There's places you go that you just feel a little off. So because I'm Black and because I've traveled with a large groups of Black folks to these same places, I know exactly sort of where to go, what to do, how to curate the trip so that people feel at home. So that's what Melanated, that's what Melanated travel does. I was really fortunate to land, same thing, Nick, with you, on the YouLi platform, because what takes the joy out of travel is Google Docs. Google Docs, when you don't have a platform and you're depending on the management systems that most of us are used to in office spaces, academic spaces, of spreadsheets and Google Docs, and it gets overwhelming. So being able to find a platform was really helpful. And I think I said this to you before, Jen. A friend of mine works at MIT, and they basically look at different tech solutions, and they give them basically a grade. And your YouLi platform came up as one of the top ones for this email he sent me, because I didn't know anything about platforms. So I just said, hey, what do you think? And what I love about YouLi is I don't have to hire, it's not like other CRMs where I have to hire somebody to do something. Like I don't have to spend money now hiring somebody to do the tech, hiring somebody to manage. I'm able to do it on my own, and I have very, very low tech skills. So it just has come out beautifully. And from that, using YouLi now, for example, there's a Black family reunions, African-American family reunions are really big business. And so using the YouLi platform to organize a trip for a family of 220 people to Cancun. It is less work for me using YouLi for 220 people. We're talking about children, grandmother, like people to Cancun. Then it took me to organize a trip for like 10 people to Guatemala when I was using all these other forms. So it is and they love the platform. They're like, this is so great. So I'm really, really jazzed and excited and just appreciate y'all, because I do a lot of tech education work in my other life. And just because it's high tech doesn't mean it makes sense, and yours makes sense. And I so appreciate it. I also enjoy the value base. You all have a value base that we align with as world travelers, not tourists. And that to me makes a big difference. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Sophia. So well said. And I'm very jealous of this family reunion that you're talking about. That sounds kind of crazy and amazing at the same time.
It's actually my ex-in-laws. So talk about, we can even make another Facebook Live on that. So this is, they came to me. They were like, we need your help. I'm like, well, I won't be attending, but I will organize it and my children will attend with their father and everybody else. So, but yeah, in all seriousness, the platform is great because it organizes who's going to be in what room, but because there's a lot of logistics and it's absolutely amazing. So that's something I never thought about. And I said, look, if I can do it for 200 and something people, I definitely can do it for a family of 50 who might want to go somewhere. So it's great. It's wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah, and we've definitely found that one of the things that from the founding perspective of YouLi, one of the inspirations was that traditional group travel, like there's this sort of like old school group travel, is like 50 people on a bus and you all do the exact same thing at the exact same time. You go to breakfast at 8, you get on the bus at 9. There's no variation. There's, and it's the same thing as all the other 10 buses that are on the same route as you. And that's not what group travel is anymore to me. To me, that's a dead form of travel. That's like tourist travel. And what you guys create is, to me, what group travel should be. And I think is the future of group travel, which is these experiences that are, personal, and they drive community, and, it's that connection to people that make you feel safe and willing to try something that you wouldn't have tried before, right? So it's not the sanitized version of the destination. It's the destination with a friend holding your hand saying, hey, you can try the real version, right? And I think that's really beautiful, and I'm excited that we can provide technology that makes it possible for you guys to do that. So thank you for doing the hard work, Sophia. As you mentioned, like you have to be committed, right? Like you have to love it to be willing to do this. And I think one of the things that I love to see, and Nick, you mentioned that sort of the work that you put in prior to the trip, right? So one of the things you do is these Zoom sessions, and do you do that for people who are interested or people who are already booked, or both? Like, how does that work?
So before the entire thing starts, I do a Zoom for anybody who might be interested, just to kind of let them know about the events that are coming up. And then once I've got my core group of travelers, then I have special members only, travelers only Zooms for them, so that we can discuss logistics and get them excited about the different excursions that are possible. And, a lot of these folks haven't been outside of the country in a long time. So you have to actually mentally walk them through what it's like going through customs and immigration. So stuff like that, so that they're not, creeped out. And this coming week, I'm going to be doing a Zoom for solo travelers who are looking for other solo travelers to try to match them up. And yeah, so there's that. And so yeah, it is constant communication with folks to get them excited and keep them informed, and just keeping everybody on the same page.
And so, I think one of the challenges that people are facing right now is kind of getting people kind of over that fear of traveling, post-pandemic, I guess it's traveling in the new era that we are in, right? And I do think that having that trust factor of connecting with someone on a call makes them more confident. And to your point about having somebody who's gone on one of your previous trips joining those calls to sort of say, I did this at the height of the pandemic, so, no worries. But I think one of the questions that I got from actually Sam, who I think has joined now, is sort of creating buzz around the launch of a new brand. And so, Sophia, I might kind of pass this back to you, because you've just sort of recently kicked that off. How did you think about that? So you were sort of inspired to launch Melanated Travel. What was your marketing plan for that?
So the one thing I wanted to, educational travel is different from leisure travel, right? So educational travel, we go somewhere, we're learning experience, it can be experiential, it can be some leisure involved, etc. But you basically have a set agenda, right? And you have a set market. So it's either independent school students who are very wealthy and they want to go backpacking, right? Or it's urban students who want a very luxury experience as they're going to Guatemala. So I've done all in between. With planning on sort of what my market is, what I had to do is I actually had to step outside of myself. So I am at 47, I'm an old school traveler, again, in the Black travel market world, right? So, I'll go to a border I'll just go to Montreal, for example. I'm just trying to go to Montreal and have some poutine. I'm not trying to have any cultural experience. I'm just coming from Massachusetts, going to Montreal. And whenever the border patrol folks are like sort of younger, like in their 30s and younger and they're Black, they're like, oh, you have a lot of stamps in your passport. Are you part of Travel Noir? I'm like, no, I just been traveling in 2019 by myself. So there's this idea that if you don't belong to a group, you're not a traveler, right? The Black travel market is very different than other travel markets. I can't speak for other groups of marginalized folks, but particularly that group I'm familiar with. So it's a very group focused experience, right? And so what I wanted to, but the issue I had was going sort of to Sam's question is, I'm an old school backpacker. I've done the backpacking. I've done the 7-star resorts. I've done everything in between. And I had to realize my market is not that. Like, it's not folks who are going to have any kind of experience. So what I started doing is I started checking into group travel for my particular Black market, going into different social media group travel chats. So I got onto, I forgot the app now, but, from following folks on Twitter, connecting with the Black travel market in England, in Canada, so that I'm starting to see sort of what different people, and then I started synthesizing different needs of the different age groups, right? So somebody who's in their 20s, again, Black travel market, really about Instagram pictures. I'm one of those people, I don't travel with a camera. I just go and experience it because I know I'm going to go back. But that's part of being privileged. Just know you're going to do it again. So, but this whole idea of photo shoots, I don't do photo shoot. I'm not a photo shoot kind of person. So now my trips include a photographer. So folks will go to the trip because of the photographer and the videographer. Seriously, they do not need, a lot of times I'll say, do you want to Zoom? Let's have a Zoom, let's discuss. But they're like, nope, we trust you. They have that, right? Whereas the different socioeconomic groups of Black women who are in their 40s and above, different groups of folks want different kind of trips, either a wellness trip, an adventure, sort of yogi trip, or folks want a cultural trip. So it's just basically been going into all the Clubhouse. That's one. Clubhouse is great. I would say join, I am not a social media person, but join Clubhouse because you really get a sense of whom the players are that aren't, sort of capitalist system players, like who the real people on the ground that are traveling are and how they do it. And then following certain people on Twitter of the locations that I frequent. So the market plan was for me to actually understand my market better.
Yeah.
And understanding it is social media, you now have you actually have the market you can connect with. So I asked people, I said, I don't remember doing photo shoots when I was backpacking. They're like, well, people don't do that anymore. So why don't you do this, And so I know that none of my trips were going to stay in a hostel, for example. So I have to price point it a certain way that, okay, you want this, you have that. So based on that analysis, and the fact that the Black travel market is in just the US is $109 billion market. Mm-hmm. And it actually has increased during COVID, not decreased. Like Black folks are traveling more.
That's interesting.
Yes.
That's probably a whole research paper right there as to why that is.
Totally. So again, knowing my market, like exactly who the folks are, the players, what they want. And then we did the price point. Right? Part of the marketing was a price point because you can have a great trip, but if it's outside my price range, what's the point, right? Mm-hmm. So then we had different price points. So we have
How
three
did you figure that out? Did you post a bunch of different versions with different prices, or did you just have conversations in the groups?
Conversations with the group, and then I had a market analysis. I just went to the different, again, the Black travel market is group travel. Like that, like that. It's hard. Like that is what it is. There are tons and tons and tons of individual people just taking groups of people places. So I again scoured, looked at, well, what are the different price points, and we came up with 3 price points: a budget and bougie, because it's on a budget, but you still bougie. We
Like
have we have a budget and bougie. We have just bougie, where it's just the mid-grade, like you're bougie, that's what you want, you're not on a budget. And then we have a baller, where you can spend 10,000 plus on a trip for a week. And if you want to do that, you can. And there are actually groups of Black professionals who they want to do that. They will splurge for a week and do that. But again, they want to do it in a group. These are things that I wasn't used to, just being a backpacker and a world traveler. That wasn't my lived reality. So what I'm saying is, part of the market is understand the lived reality of your market, if it's not already part of your market. And so that's what we did. And then from that, just basically creating a buzz and starting off small, just connecting with people that, just like Nick, have already traveled with us. So one of the teachers that I've traveled with definitely belongs to a Black alumni association of their university. They're mostly historical Black colleges. One of the students who traveled with us is now in college and can promote us at BU. One of the parents, right, definitely can say, hey, we women need a girls trip because these kids drive us crazy for COVID. Come along with us. One of our parents might want a parent trip to Africa, to West Africa, my apologies, to sort of a reconnecting cultural trip. So what I did was exactly what Nick did and what you said, Jen, is I've asked people, what would be the ideal trip for you? And would you be recruiting people for that trip? And then I give you a free, a gratis trip. So you get 30, right? There's one woman, she's a professor, and she is doing a mother-son trip to Ghana. We're doing that in 2022. So we're gonna do a trip, mother, son. So it's mothers and sons, nobody else, just the mothers and the sons. And they're going to Ghana. So she already has a whole group of a bunch of professors and people and all these. That's not my, like, those are your people. But her son and she and her son go for free. And then that's it. So that really, again, going back to what Nick said, the value, people are going because of you. So I work with her at Harvard, and she was like, oh, I'll go anywhere with you anytime. So her friends trust her, then she trusts me. I don't have to necessarily market. So that's our 2022, I'm sorry, 2021, I think of academic years, 2021 into 2022 academic year. Our goal is, eventually, our 2023 goal is to hit 0.01% of the Black travel market. Like, we're not, and that's another thing I learned from a Harvard Business School professor. There's no need to compete with the big dogs, which won't mention their names here. Do your thing and do it well, and then it will build. So we want, out of that 109.4 billion, we want 0.01% of that market share.
I love that. I love the sort of leveraging of those passionate, loyal customers that have been with you in the past, and then leveraging them to kind of just expand out, and not just in a social media kind of way, but actually like on the trips. And so that's such a great idea, to sort of invite those people to come for free if they kind of bring that group along and really champion it. So that's a great suggestion. And I think that's, it's a lot, to me, a lot more accessible than sometimes, sort of the social media kind of approach to things can sometimes feel very much like screaming at a brick wall. So that feels much more authentic to me for the kinds of groups, group leaders that we have on the platform. They will have had these great experiences with travelers, and they just aren't sure how to get that message out. Right. And so, take advantage of those advocates and get them on your team. Right. I love that. And so, Nick, do you have any thoughts kind of off of what Sophia just said?
What I love about Sophia, and Sophia, you and I need to sit down and have drinks sometime.
Yes.
What I love about Sophia is she knows her audience. She knows who her travelers are. And it's so important not to go chase after those folks, but to be really secure in who you are and what you offer, and the folks will come to you. I really, truly believe that. And they do that through word of mouth from other folks who have traveled before, or you just become this force of gravity that they are drawn to. So, you know, Sophia and I have similar sorts of travelers, in the sense that we, you know, I have mostly gay travelers. You mostly have African-American travelers, and we have marginalized groups who are traveling. And as you said, there are places we can go where we're comfortable and welcome, and there are places where we are not. And you just sparked in me. I'm like, you know, a mother and son's trip to Key West or to someplace in Florida would be fantastic. That would be absolutely wonderful, and something I never thought of before. It wouldn't be naked, but it would still be fun.
And you know what, Nick,
That'd
the
be
thing about
that would be a really, really niche group.
but you know what, Nick, when you are confident in yourself, right? I'm not, right? I'm not a gay man, but I would attend one of your trips, right? So I actually have, right? Our website is very clear. We cater to Black travelers, but you know, I had a group from Boston University, mostly white undergraduate students, who were like, oh, we would love to travel with you to Cuba, because we heard from a student of theirs, a student that I had taken, that I had in middle school, that we went to Cuba together when I was leading a middle school. Oh, you got to go on the trip. I was like, oh, okay. So it's not a matter of like, I only, right? It's that is the experience you're going to get. You're going to get the history, right? You're going to get the geography, the physicality, the art of African peoples globally, and indigenous peoples globally when we go to countries that are majority indigenous. And so that's, you know, and so if you're looking for that, yeah, we'll, you know, bet we'll go. But yeah, that the trips with familial groups that aren't always the family, right? Because like the mother and son, there's one group, there's one person that's going, it's a grandmother, right? The grandmother that's going with the child. So, but your chosen familiar group to travel together. And what's great is that with the YouLi platform, my folks don't have to then do elevator pitches over and over again. They just are like, you want to go, I trust you, go with me. Oh yeah, go on this link, look at, yeah, this is a trip, this is what we're gonna do. And they say yay or nay. So that really helps.
Yeah.
And do you guys use the feature that allows people to see who else is going on the trip, or do you turn that off?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you do. Sophia,
Yeah,
do you? Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Nick.
I'm sorry. The magazine and the trips are all about connection. So the sooner they can establish those connections with each other, and you know, that's one of the reasons we do the Zooms, is so they get interested in each other. So they are forming friendships even before they meet each other for the first time. And when we did this last year, they all, they're all showing up like, travelers at Fantasy Island, and they all know each other, and they're all excited because here we all are finally at last. And that connection is just absolutely imperative. So, and I take a lot of help with me. So last year I took 3 helpers, and I'm going to be taking 3 helpers this year. And the reason I do that is because I don't want everybody to do the same thing at the same time. I want to be able to offer different things to different people. So while Bob is taking folks on the candy tour of Mexico, I'm taking a group of folks to learn about Huichol art and meeting folks who are doing, handiwork. And so there's me, there's my partner Bob, and then I take 2 other folks. And the helpers also get a chance to see all of the people who are coming, hone in on their personalities, and make connections before they show up. So being able to see who's coming is absolutely imperative. So
I love it. Sophia, do you use that feature?
Yeah. For mine, there's always this sort of one person that's the connector to the crowd group. So somebody knows somebody. So just because during COVID, I haven't yet marketed to folks outside of that circle. So for example, if Jeff has a group of folks that he wants to go to Guatemala with. And I trust Jeff. I'll say, sure, I'll organize it. But Jeff knows everyone. Or right, so it's either Jeff's like alumni group, or it's his frat brothers, or if it right. So they sort of all know everyone. And that's why sort of we were talking about earlier, I really have to think ahead regarding a clear traveler profile when I'm starting to just group people because they heard about us and they want to link up with us. So yeah, but the folks all know each other, so they can contact each other. If you don't have somebody's email, you can text each other. So that kind of thing.
Well, I'm gonna, oh, sorry, go ahead, Nick.
I have one thing, and this is a little off topic, but this is so my favorite thing about YouLi right now is all of my helpers also get profiles. And I just zero out their trip amount so that they don't have to deal with crazy payments and stuff like that. But I make itinerary items for each of them so that they know what they're responsible for. So for example, Chris, I will have his plane information, his arrival information on the schedule, along with his responsibilities, along with he has to go pick up a cake for Julio on Thursday, along with whatever, and just make that available so that it only shows up on Chris's itinerary. That tool alone has saved so much communication and so much frustration, because not only are you trying to make sure that all of your guests are happy, you're also trying to keep all of your organizers organized. So that tool alone has made me a lifelong YouLi fan. So by all means, I can't thank you enough for allowing me to show certain itinerary items to just certain people. Priceless.
Yeah, and that can be a bit of a hidden feature because you have to kind of get into the itinerary, and then by default they're all shown to everyone, but you can choose to include or exclude people on those. So yeah, I love that you're using that. When we first launched YouLi, everyone was like, oh, that's too advanced. So I love to see people finally kind of being like, yes, I need this.
Yeah, yeah, it's brilliant. And our last Zoom that we had with all of the travelers for all 3 trips, it was all focused on the YouLi app and how to use the YouLi app and making sure that their magic link was there, so that and I did live itinerary updates so that they could see how things would change, so that even before they get there, they're going to know how to use that app. And that just saves so much time and confusion later on.
The good news is we've updated our app to make it easier to get into it. So when you load it, it now prompts you for an email address and you get your link sent to you immediately. So now the onboarding onto the app is just a lot smoother. So we'll continue to make improvements there, but it's funny, we launched our traveler trip app in February of 2020. So we didn't spend the year optimizing the app the way we had planned to, but we're really happy that even in its sort of initial form, it's still really useful. So we're excited to see you taking advantage of that. It also works offline, which is kind of nice because you quickly discover when you go on adventures that you don't have internet everywhere. But you still need to know what the schedule is. So I do want to make sure that people on the call have a chance to ask questions. So if you have any, please feel free to either pop them in the chat or raise your hand to ask a question. All right, go for it, Sam.
Okay, first off, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great. When launching a new trip, from the time where you feel you have things ready to go in YouLi, what would you each say are the top 3 things to do to get registrations, applications, if that's part of your funnel, and then deposits?
I would say my top 3 thing is, I think we undersell ourselves. So I would say before you think about all of that, once you've organized the trip, right, you have your You have your vendors, you know your itinerary, all that, right? Because if you have it on the platform, everything's all set. I would say the one tip that I got from somebody who does group travels years back is what's your hourly rate? Making sure you clearly know your hourly rate, because we all know you can do a trip, after the trip you clear whatever, but when you break down your hourly rate, you have worked so many hours for that trip, and you're literally like, okay, I could have been working at Starbucks for that same amount. Like, so the question, it's about like, so your hourly rate, right? That's sort of the first thing. The second thing I would piggyback on Jeff is you use your internal network. Like, what is your, right? You're like, right, before I send something off to the World Wide Web, I want to send stuff to people I know, who know me, who respect me, who travel with me, who see my pictures, who come to my house and see my travel, artwork, etc. Because those people then can pass it on. So just sort of the passing on model, to do that. And from that, you get a sense of sort of who's interested, because by that, Sam, you might have a full trip. That's another thing. We like either undersell ourselves, or we underestimate how many people actually love travel and how big this market is. You can fill up trips so quickly. And so I would say, don't underestimate your own network. Really think about, after you've done all that's what YouLi is great. Now you have the platform. The question is, how much effort and work am I going to put into it? How many hours is going to be? Like, what am I going to, right? I would say those are three, right? Like, give yourself an hourly rate. And if you're a professional, it should be comparable to your professional hourly rate. And if you're a lawyer, doctor, it should be comparable, right? Depending on whatever your social strata is. The next is send to your networks. And again, have your networks do the work for you. If people love you, they're gonna want to see you win. You're gonna want it, like, they're gonna want to see you win. So if YouLi were to say, Sophia, can you come and do, but I will go do it because you have helped me. Like, you're right, it's this reciprocal nature of trips. So if it's hiking, find a hiking club group. There's tons of meetups and all that, and say, look, why don't a group of y'all come on this trip? Somebody figure out, get me the people, get them registered. Don't give them things free unless you get your money. But once you have all that, then, now I'll do a trip for the Boston Hikers Club, right? I'm not a hiker, but I'll take them somewhere. They'll do their hiking while we make sure everything is great when they come down from their hikes or whatever. So that I think, like, don't think marketing wide, because with the heart, you're thinking sort of narrow. What's your community, your network, people you love, and also people who love you.
Got it. That's fantastic. Thank you so much.
Nick, do you have comments?
Sure. So Sam, the first thing I do is, and this is what I was taught, have a brilliant sales page. I never half-ass my sales page. Every detail that I can possibly put in there is there. And even though I'm adding new things to this year's itinerary, I still have enough stuff in there so the new travelers are going to be able to look at that sales page and know this is going to be jam-packed with a lot of fun and experiences that I'm not going to have anyplace else. So make sure that that marketing piece is solid. Number two, what I learned, and this is piggybacking off of what Sophia just said about making sure that you're getting paid. I'm doing 3 trips to the same place that I was last year. Same vendors, same villas, same everything, okay? These folks already know me. It has been so easy this year to go back to those same vendors, the same everything, and just work out those contracts because we know each other. So that has really made a lot of things a lot of fun. Side note, one of my helpers that was supposed to come last year got sick with COVID, so he couldn't go. And he had Memorial Day week off. So I'm like, you want to go to Vallarta so that you can kind of get an idea of what it's like before we go in November? And so we just came back from Vallarta a week and a half ago before I came to Connecticut. And I went around and touched base with all of my vendors one more time to say, hey, don't forget, I'm going to be here in October. What can we do to ratchet this thing up to the next level? So once you've got great relationships with those vendors, those relationships are gold. And the other thing that I do is I let my folks know, I tease my folks for about 4 weeks before I actually open up that sales page. So I'm going back to Vallarta. Who wants to come with me? Oh, here's Angel, who went with us last year. Wasn't it great, Angel? Angel will give a testimonial, and then I'll do a 3, 2, 1, and then we open up that sales page. And when I did the Day of the Dead launch this year, because people went on Day of the Dead last year and it was so much fun, even though there was no Day of the Dead stuff going on in town, we sold that trip out in 20 minutes. So absolutely crucial to build that excitement.
That's really
Yeah.
interesting. That sort of holding it back so that it becomes a kind of a release rather than just putting it out there right away. And I think, Sam, you have an application process, right? So people can't just book in because they need to be qualified to go on the trip, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And let me ask just a quick clarifying question. When you talk about have a brilliant sales page, is that in YouLi terms essentially having a brilliant trip page where you've got good highlights and itinerary?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay,
And
got it.
the sales page that YouLi creates is already gorgeous. Have those phenomenal graphics, have stuff that's bolded. Just keep that eye moving throughout that entire page. My page is very long, but it answers a lot of questions. And because of the formatting and stuff, people just read it from top to bottom. And they'll ask me questions about stuff that I forgot was in there. So
Great.
it's lovely to know that they're reading it.
Jeff, you had a comment?
Great.
Yeah, I was just going to say, with and further to Nick's point, one of the great feedback points we got early on was to don't forget to talk about yourself in that highlights section of the itinerary in YouLi. Create a card about yourself, about your team. It's a great way to give your travelers your background, introduce yourself, obviously put your photo in. So that's always a great thing to have in your itinerary is, if you're taking them, if you're hosting them, they're going to want to know about you. And to have that in the itinerary is a very, very handy thing. The other one is, don't forget you can put video in there as well. Video is very powerful. So.
Yeah, I always recommend that as that in the overview section, having that initial video up at the top is a great one to get people kind of hooked in.
Yeah, and if Jeff would have continued down that page, you would have saw my profile along with the other people who are my helpers for that trip. So, everybody's a superstar for that. And it's kind of nice to know who those people are going to be that are going to be, who are going to be your touch points, so that when you do show up, you recognize those faces as the people who are going to be able to help you. Yeah, toward the bottom.
Oh, what an amazing outfit.
Right? This is beautiful.
Yeah, I took that photo last year. She was all masked up but she was all decked out, ready to go.
That's amazing. So this is the team that you're talking about. So these are all your helpers and your partner. Yeah.
For that particular trip, those will be my helpers. Yep.
And
then the other trips, we swap out a couple of the guys. So.
And so I think that's a really important thing, right? Because these are special trips, and I think both of you have kind of emphasized like it's about your brand, and they're coming because of you or because of the people who are organizing this. And so making sure that you don't disappear behind it's a trip to Mexico. It's like, no, it's a GoNaked events trip with Nick and his team, right? And I think making that, because I think sometimes, and I definitely experienced this when I first launched YouLi, I thought, it shouldn't be about me. It's about the company and the software and that kind of thing. But actually, people like to buy from people that they know. And especially with a brand new brand where you don't, you're not Coca-Cola, right? Like, it's not a known brand yet. And so having that personal touch in your marketing is really, really important, so that people trust you. And especially at the price points that these trips can be at, people need to know that there's a real human being on the other side of that transaction, right?
Yeah. Sam, what kind of excursions will you, or events, or what will you be offering?
Well, given the trend towards remote work and the fact that my family and I, my wife and I have been working remotely from Tahiti for the past year, we're enabling small groups of families, the parents, to work remotely, initially from Tahiti, then other parts of French Polynesia, while the kids experience just extraordinary educational activities, both on-site and off-site. So the initial trip will be this fall here in Tahiti. It'll just be the best of the best kind of outdoor educational activities that my two kids have experienced this past year. And the parents will get to, without using their personal time off or much of it, get to do their jobs remotely like we've been doing.
Nice.
Do you
That's
want to
wonderful.
share? Do you want to share Sam's new website, Jen?
Oh, yeah. Working Without Borders. I'm
Love that.
It's
I was
beautiful.
just
Definitely
talking
check
with
it out.
coworkers. I was just talking with some old coworkers from the hospital. They're like, if we could go down and work half day and then go see, go see the city and go experience cultural things, we'd be all for it. And it looks like that's what you're doing. This is
Got
fantastic.
it. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Spread the word.
Yeah, this is great. This is a great idea.
Oh,
Yeah, and so we worked with Sam to launch his website, and really emphasizing the photos. So that's when you're launching, and well, Nick, you're established. I mean, you know how important photos are to express what it is that that you're offering.
Yep.
Yeah. Any other questions from our guests here today? Well, I'm going to ask one final question here, which is, what is it that kind of keeps you motivated and accountable? Because these are hard things to create. Do you guys ever run into challenges? And do you have any coping mechanisms that you can share?
Sophia, you want to go first?
Yeah, what keeps me motivated, to be honestly, what keeps me motivated is when somebody experiences the world literally for the first time, for me. So for me, when I always give this example is, the first time a Black person from a settler colonial country goes to a Black nation and like everybody's Black and they're literally staring and you're like, it's cool. Everybody's gonna be Black here for it. Like, it's good. But like that experience of, right, it's total freedom is what I, so when COVID hit, right, we didn't know what was happening with the world, but I knew on the other side, Guatemala was going to be there, Cuba was going to be there, and just sort of pacing myself. So, right, talking about a hurdle. The hurdle is a global pandemic when our business is traveling. So that's the hurdle. And so the fact that we can still be here and talking about it and energized, like that keeps me going. Another thing is the reciprocal economic relationships between global North and global South countries, right? In that, my team, I have a team in Guatemala, they feed their families, they send their families to school, they based on our trips, right? So it's an incentive for me to, like, it's not about me because I can get a job in academia, right? I could leave it, but for me, it's like, no, we have to do this. In Cuba, same thing. That keeps me going, right? I took a group of academics to Cuba 2 years ago before COVID hit for a trip on reading literacy, because Cuba has one of the best reading programs. So we went there, a large urban district, and those folks have been sending money when they can back to Cuba because the economy has basically shut down, right? Because the tourist economy. So those are the things that you say, all right, now I see humanity and I'm excited about it. So that to me is what keeps me going and keeps me accountable to then keep doing the work and keep fine tuning.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
I wish that my answer were as intelligent and heady, but I My answer is that I have always admired people who create their own universes and get to live in them. So the person who created Barbie lived in that Barbie universe. Independent fashion designers create their own world and get a chance to live in there. And I admired that for such a long time. By doing the magazine, that was kind of going on for a while, but when COVID hit last year, that was the kick in pants that I needed to just solidify my universe and say, I am my own entity now, and I get to create how I choose to live, why I choose to get up in the morning, and who I get to serve. And that is what every morning I wake up filled with new ideas, and I can't wait to execute as many of them as I can. So
Well, that is a beautiful way to wrap up our mastermind. Thank you, Nick, and thank you, Sophia. Really appreciate your passion and being willing to share it here. And thanks, Sam, for joining in and asking your questions. We look forward to perhaps, Sam, on the other side of your event, we'll have you pop back in and share your lessons in creating your
Sounds good.
trip. Absolutely. Cool. And yeah, well, we didn't get a chance to talk about our matchmaking idea because we've run out of time. So I think maybe that's going to be our next conversation. And I'm also quite hopeful that since I'm going to be in the US from mid-July, that I might actually be able to catch up with Sophia or Nick, maybe.
Yes.
You let me know where you're going to be. We'll make it happen.
We'll make it happen.
We'd love to.
Just a pity you can't transit via Tahiti, Jen.
I know, right? Well, Sam has inspired me. Our new goal is that the YouLi team will come together, because we're a fully remote team, in 2022 and do a remote co-working in Tahiti. So that's
Wow.
my goal. Let's see if we can make it happen. So yeah, and I'm going to the US this year to really properly launch the YouLi brand in the US market. And assuming that goes well, then we will be celebrating in Tahiti in 2022.
Fantastic.
All right, everyone, have a wonderful day. See you next time.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Thanks,
Thank you all
Jen.
so much.